The 10th chapter, Appreciating God's Grace. Why do you look for rest when you were born to work? Resign yourself to patience rather than to comfort, to carrying your cross rather than to enjoyment. What man in the world, if it could always have them, would not readily accept consolation and spiritual joy, benefits which excel all earthly delights and pleasures of the body? The latter indeed are either vain or base, while spiritual joys born of virtue and infused by God into pure minds are alone truly pleasant and noble. Now since the moment of temptation is always nigh, since false freedom of mind and overconfidence in self are serious obstacles to these visitations from heaven, a man can never enjoy them just as he wishes. God does well in giving the grace of consolation, but man does evil in not returning everything gratefully to God. Thus the gifts of grace cannot flow in us when we are ungrateful to the giver, when we do not return them to the fountainhead. Grace is always given to him who is duly grateful, and what is wont to be given, the humble will be taken away from the proud. I do not desire consolation that robs me of contrition, nor do I care for contemplation that leads to pride. For not all that is high is holy, nor is all that is sweet good, nor every desire pure, nor all that is dear to us pleasing to God. I accept willingly the grace whereby I become more humble and contrite, more willing to renounce self. The man who has been taught by the gift of grace and who learns by the lash of its withdrawal will never dare to attribute any good to himself, but will rather admit his poverty and emptiness. Give to God what is God's, and ascribe to yourself what is yours. Give him thanks then for his grace, but place upon yourself alone the blame and the punishment your fault deserves. Always take the lowest place and the highest will be given you, for the highest cannot exist apart from the lowest. The saints who are greatest before God are those who consider themselves the least, and the more humble they are within themselves, so much the more glorious they are. Since they do not desire vain glory, they are full of truth and heavenly glory. Being established and strengthened in God, they can by no means be proud. They attribute to God whatever good they have received. They seek no glory from one another, but only that which comes from God alone. They desire above all things that he be praised in themselves and in all his saints. This is their constant purpose. Be grateful therefore for the least gift, and you will be worthy to receive a greater. Consider the least gift as the greatest, the most contemptible as something special, and if you but look to the dignity of the giver, no gift will appear too small or worthless. Even though he give punishments and scourges, accept them, because he acts for our welfare in whatever he allows to befall us. He who desires to keep the grace of God ought to be grateful when it is given, and patient when it is withdrawn. Let him pray that it return. Let him be cautious and humble lest he lose it. The 11th chapter. Few love the cross of Jesus. Jesus has always many who love his heavenly kingdom, but few who bear his cross. He has many who desire consolation, but few who care for trial. He finds many to share his table, but few to take part in his fasting. All desire to be happy with him, few wish to suffer anything for him. Many follow him to the breaking of bread, but few to the drinking of the chalice of his passion. Many revere his miracles, few approach the shame of the cross. Many love him as long as they encounter no hardship. Many praise and bless him as long as they receive some comfort from him. But if Jesus hides himself and leaves them for a while, they fall either into complaints or into deep dejection. Those, on the contrary, who love him for his own sake and not for any comfort of their own, bless him in all trial and anguish of heart as well as in the bliss of consolation. Even if he should never give them consolation, yet they would continue to praise him and wish always to give him thanks. What power there is in pure love for Jesus, love that is free from all self-interest and self-love. Do not those who always seek consolation deserve to be called mercenaries? Do not those who always think of their own profit and gain prove that they love themselves rather than Christ? Where can a man be found who desires to serve God for nothing? Rarely indeed is a man so spiritual as to strip himself of all things. And who shall find a man so truly poor in spirit as to be free from every creature? His value is like that of things brought from the most distant lands. If a man give all his wealth, it is nothing. If he do great penance, it is little. If he gain all knowledge, he is still far afield. If he have great virtue and much ardent devotion, he still lacks a great deal, and especially the one thing that is most necessary to him. What is this one thing? That leaving all, he forsake himself, completely renounce himself, and give up all private affections. Then when he has done all that he knows ought to be done, let him consider it as nothing. Let him make little of what may be considered great. Let him in all honesty call himself an unprofitable servant. For truth itself has said, when you shall have done all these things that are commanded you, say we are unprofitable servants. Then he'll be truly poor and stripped in spirit, and with the prophet may say, I am alone and poor. No one, however, is more wealthy than such a man. No one is more powerful, no one freer than he who knows how to leave all things and think of himself as the least of all.